So, everyone, today it's March 1st. It's the day that you've all arrived here with me for our community writing practice. And I am just so thrilled that you gave yourself the time and the space and permission, and you made your first radically amazing sovereign act, which is that you showed up. And that in of itself is where all the magic starts. I put out the invitation to this in a few different ways. A lot of different parts of me showed up in how I asked you guys to be here. So some of it was like, it's my healer voice. And that was like, hey, come explore, dive within and see what's going to happen. I promise you'll surprise yourself. And some of you might have heard the, hey, you guys, let's come play. Come do this thing. It's going to be really cool. And the fact of the matter is that we live in a both and also universe. In both versions of those, that is true. And I want to invite both versions of you, of all versions of you, to show up on the page today in what comes through. Because I would love for this both to be a space for you guys to find room for healing, to find room for self-discovery, for finding what happens in the quiet of the page, but also to play and realize that whether you come with baggage about what writing means to you, or whether writing's often been one of your greatest allies and one of your greatest tools, enter this with that spirit of, I have nothing to lose. Anything could happen. I could burn this or shred this or bury it in my journal afterward, or it could turn into something really remarkable. So, in that spirit, let's go with what comes. Let's see what flows and trust it. So the way I see this working is that I'm going to be offering you different prompts. We're going to write into those for about 10 or 15 minutes each. And we'll give ourselves some time to talk a little bit at the end. Not necessarily that you don't have to read what you wrote. That's not what we're here to do. Instead, it's more like, let's talk about the process. Let's talk about what came through for you. Let's just know that we're here to be seen and heard, to say, hi, I showed up and I did this thing and I'm really excited about X, or, oh, this was hard for me and I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it next. And then we'll close out our time together. I hope you guys have booked till 1:15 if you can, just to talk about what might be next for you. I have an invitation for you about what I would love to do to play with you next, but just to give you some ideas as well as like, okay, you started with one session of writing, what comes after this? So I am going to try to get super technical and share my screen with you guys. I put the prompts on slides today because they wanted to be a little bit longer, and I wanted to be able to give them to you fully. So that's not the right one. Here it is. Okay. So one way I could have asked you guys to be here today was, I keep saying you guys. I'm hearing myself do that. If that's bugging you, it's bugging me too. I'm trying to shift that in my head. But I had invited you all to be here for community writing practice, right? Because that's a very easy and clear name. But in a way, what I could have done was to invite you here for sovereignty writing practice, because that's really at the heart of my work. This idea of what would it be like to stand fully in your own power, in your own sense of self, not in order to become an isolated island, not in order to, for it to be like statecraft where we're all trying to, become a sovereign nation. No, I'm thinking about this more in terms of how can we become so rooted and grounded in ourselves that we are so sure of our own stories, that then our arms are free to reach out and help others, to hold others while they tell their stories. So I want to offer you these three imaginations of sovereignty I have, because definitions have been way too constricted for me. So I offer these just as sort of a foundation we're going to hold together. I'm going to see if you guys can mute yourselves, because I'm going to fight with that right now and trying to get it done, but I'm hearing some background noise. If you guys could help me with that, I'd be super appreciative. So let's just briefly cover these imaginations of sovereignty. And then we're going to dive into the writing, because I think this might help all of us kind of have a mutual grounding. So imagine a world where every being can stand sovereign in her own life so she can love herself, her household, and her broader community. Imagine a world where every being can write her own sovereign story so she can make peace with her past, get comfortable in her own presence, and draft a powerful new future. And imagine a world where every being can sing her sovereign song so she can make this world more beautiful, bearable, and bold. So hold those, see where they sit for you. They might help kind of light something. So let's move into our first prompt together, okay? Like I said, pen, journal, paper, whatever you've got. And we are going to write into this prompt for about 12 minutes or so, and then you'll hear my voice again. So let's start with one powerful moment. Write into a moment when you felt fully present, fully held by your own powerful body, fully engaged with your own powerful mind, and fully in touch with your own powerful spirit. Now, rather than reaching for one of those marquee moments in life, I suggest you focus on something a little more intimate, like the way you felt when you had the perfect cup of coffee, or in the midst of a great session with a client, or when you were snuggled up with one of the people that you love best. Tell that story of what it felt to be fully in yourself and see what comes through. There's nothing right or wrong here. There's just that chance to sort of sit with this idea and see what comes through. Somebody sent me a chat message. Unfortunately, I'm not able to open it right now. But we are going to keep writing into this prompt for about another 5 minutes or so. And then we'll move on to the next. Oops. Okay, so if this prompt still has your attention, by all means, keep going with it. But I want to throw this next one into the mix and see what comes through for you. Because we can't always stand in the sun. Right into a moment when you felt fully, whoa, that's the same prompt. No, wait, something happened. Whoops, I get all technical and amazing, and then it gets a little goofy. So let me read this to you. I apologize. I will try to fix this afterward because some of my cutting and pasting didn't work. All right. We can't always stand in the sun. We live in a culture that is obsessed with bright lights and constant progress. Everything is supposed to feel good all the time. And if it's not, you're doing it wrong. And maybe you should take a pill for that. You may have noticed that's not my approach. We need more joy and we need more play, but we can't really do that in an authentic, powerful way until we reckon with the shadows too. Let yourself explore the moments when you don't feel power and light coursing through your veins. Do you embrace those moments as a natural part of the cycle? Do you panic because you should be more amped and ready? Do you know this time in the shadow too well and feel like it's time to open the shades? That last paragraph is correct, which is the place where the questions are. So we're going to trust that and know those are there for you to come back to. But let's just give ourselves the permission and the courage to explore the shadow a little bit and know that we're all held by this group and we won't go too far. We won't go any further than we want to. And we will write into this one for about another 12 minutes. And I'm going to try to update the slide if I can, cleverly behind the scenes. So we'll just write into this one for one more minute and then we'll shift our attention. Okay. So now we'll move on to our last prompt for today. More beautiful, bearable, and bold. Let's create a world that's more beautiful, bearable, and bold has been my mantra for years. It rolls off the tongue in a delightful way, but we need so much more than wordplay to make that happen. We need to get really clear on what that means at the individual and the collective levels. So, first, consider what a life that's more beautiful, bearable, and bold looks like for you personally. What changes and grows? What stays the same? What do you need to let go of in order to embrace this be, and be lifestyle? Let's write into that one for a few minutes, and then you'll hear me again for an invitation to think about kind of pulling the lens back and looking at the wider idea. So let's do this for, 5 minutes or so. What does a world that's more beautiful, bearable, and bold look like for you personally? And at this point, you may want to, like I said, pull the lens back and look at the collective and think about what it would be for the collective to be more beautiful and bearable and bold. Where does your attention go first? Social justice or the environment or education? Wherever it is for you, imagine this earth that's more beautiful, bearable, and bold, and what that might look like. What will you do to help make this just a little bit more possible? So we're going to write into this for another 5 minutes or so, and then we will close the journals and come back and talk a little bit about what came through.
Traffic on your route is heavier than usual. You will arrive at 12:02
Christine, can
p.m.
you mute yourself, please? Thank you. So I invite you to start coming back. I invite you to begin to find a place where this particular session of writing is ready to pause. And as we always do in the Sovereignty Circle, when we write together, like just like this, every week, we meet every Wednesday at noon. I always ask our members to find a landing point, and not only that, but also make the next date with your own writing, whether it's coming back to this because there's something in here you're really excited about, or whether it's just saying like, okay, I've started to prime the pump, there's more that's going to come here. Is it going to be on Sunday morning? Is it going to be, you'll do this for yourself next Friday at noon? Maybe it's that you want to join us in the group and you could write with us next Wednesday. But this whole idea of, that was great, let's do it again, is really potent and powerful, because as with so many aspects of self-care and the things that we do to grow, we need to do them with a level of intentionality. So I invite you just to give yourself a moment to think about what you've written, and where it might want to fit in your life next, or where just writing in general, this feeling you got from doing this, might want to fit next. Because you have permission to make this real, to let this be a priority, and not necessarily just writing itself, but wherever this writing might want to take you. What if this was something that was real and that you did frequently enough that it became a practice? Just like whether it's meditation or yoga or making a cup of coffee, those things that you do to support yourself. And when you're ready, I would love to hear a little bit about what came through for you. Maybe what surprised you, what you'll come back to, what you just would like to have be seen and heard here today, because there's something really valuable and beautiful in that, that's for sure. Hmm. Who's a brave soul who feels like saying something first?
This is Anita. I'll be glad to go
Hi,
first.
Anita. Thank you.
Okay. So I think the first prompt I've done many times, not many times, meaning like something like it, to try to envision like what was it that happened before that could be reproduced, and and I'll say it's kind of funny because at the end of it, when you open prompt 2, it was like the right prompt, because I'm always disappointed that what I come up with in the kind of where's your flow state, what were you doing when you were in flow state, is always something that happened a long time ago. So I was already kind of in my shadow, so to speak, when you prompted to, and it's not uncommon, and I just so, for writing, I think that I get really down on trying to write something about the shadows, because I feel like I'm dwelling, and I don't know if that's a cultural thing. Like, my background is, head up, just keep going. And the very last line I wrote in that prompt was something along the lines of, even though all the stuff is happening, it does wear on me like water on rocks. And it's true. I've always thought of myself as sort of this rock, and not in a negative way, like I'm unmovable, but like, just solid, whatever's happening, just let it go. Keep doing whatever you got to do. So, so it's just, I just make that comment that I think the second prompt is something that is really hard for me to do, because I feel like I'm I'm weak, I guess would be the word, for being in the shadow and like dwelling on my own issues or my own inability to get out of it or something like that. So anyway, that's my share. If you well, that's all.
That's beautiful. And I was raised in the "Don't worry, be happy" camp. So that was one of my mother's
I
favorite
would
ones.
say we're happy, but we don't complain. Like
Right. Well, it was Bobby
complaining is like-
McFerrin gave her that line, so it was just like, let's just go with that. He's great. So I completely identify, and I bring this kind of let's play with shadow work because I don't see it as dwelling. I see it as the necessary work we don't give ourselves time to do sometimes. And so I'm hoping that kind of came through and feels like, okay, that was a good use of time rather than, being a Debbie Downer. It's not about that. It's about looking at shadows in a different way to say, well, they're natural. The sun makes a shadow, right? It exists. Let's make sure we know it's there. Because I don't know, I'm a redhead. I get sunburned. I can't stay out in the sun all the time. God, goodness knows. I have to learn to embrace the shade. I think,
right. That's true.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Anita.
Sure.
Anybody else?
I'll go.
Yeah.
So question 2 was exactly what I needed today. So I'm taking the day off. February has been a month for me in that I had an emergency move that was a temporary move, and then a second move that was a permanent move, and things unpacked, and my life has been chaos, and I haven't had a day off literally since February 2nd. And last Friday I started to get sick, and I did all the things to like keep pushing so I could do another weekend of moving. And yesterday I hit the wall, and it was like, people are like, hope you feel better. And my brain is like, yes. And if I feel better, I will do all the fucking unpacking, and I will do all the stuff today. And so, part of what I wrote was, the broth is bubbling in the stock pot. It's time to sit still for my soul. It's time to literally and metaphorically apply salve to my crispy, burnt out soul and replenish. It's time to sink into the re-energy of retrograde and recapture my essence. Go into the cave, rest, rejuvenate. This is a day to quill or play with calligraphy or just read a fucking book. This is a day to sit with the cat in the lap. Today the rain would be welcome. So, there's this thing of I've been pushing so hard all month, everything done, and to do the moves and to do everything, that it's like my body is still in that, I just gotta like suck it up, get better, and keep going. And last night, the message in my brain was, well, if I get sick, then you have to stop.
Right.
And if I respond to all the things you're doing to feel better, then you're going to push me again into another full weekend of this. Like, so really, the time to like go into the crisp of my soul, of the burn, and just sit still is really important today. So, to have this moment to write it out was a really good way to start my day, because I'm on East Coast time. So to do this, at 9 a.m. is a really good, like, set the tone for the day.
Oh, I'm just so honored that we get to be part of this kind of process and holding space for you at such a perfect time. I love it when it's like, we're here for you on this day. I adore that. And I think you and I were looking over each other's shoulder. I definitely was writing about the cave myself. And those questions we have to ask ourselves: what if we gave ourselves a chance to rest before we fell down mostly dead and could enjoy the cat and tend the crispiness? Thank you so much, Kat. That was I'm feeling you so completely, and I'm in such a similar space too. So, February was a year, right? And now it's
Yeah.
New Year's Day.
Yes. Yeah.
Hey, Kat, this is Natalie, and I just wanted to say I really appreciate what you wrote. Just so beautiful. And I would read your blog, just saying. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Natalie. Oh, well, Kat, I wish you a day of rest, a beautiful long day of rest ahead and rejuvenation. Thank you.
Yeah, we're supposed to have storms, so this is the first time I am praying for the rain, like let it rain, because the good weather will I should go walk out in the rain, So, yeah.
The weather witches amongst us are sending you big dark clouds, beautiful shadows. They're coming your way.
Woohoo.
Oh, thank you so much. Anybody else that add something into our big cauldron of creativity?
Well, Marissa, this is Michelle. And I think when you talk about living in the shadows, it's winter, and in the natural rhythm of life, I look at winter as that time when we go inside, when we sit in the shadows of the cave, when we hibernate and huddle and reflect. And that's all a natural part of the rhythm of life. And, living in Minnesota and certainly living on the East Coast, we've all had our share of winter this year. I think that's where I went from being comfortable in the shadows as the rhythm of life to I need to get out of here as quick as possible. Because I think it's tested everyone's soul with the extreme weather and snow that we've had. And so I literally lifted the shade and went to Florida to escape. But I think, you made a really important point about in this society that we're in, it's all about, finding happiness and finding joy and being positive. And there is a natural rhythm that comes from just living in the shadows for a while and being comfortable with that. And I think we need that balance in our life, and we need to find that comfort with being able to be in both the sunshine and the shadow that it casts. So I spent time reflecting on that.
Yeah, we live this, right? Like this is when we realize like these are, it's yes, it's a writing practice, but it's also, this is what we're constantly living. What if we got the insight into recognizing that it's not only inevitable, it's actually just in alignment with the rhythm of what we already want to do and know we're doing. Yeah. Well, Michelle, thank you so much for making us part of your time away. I'm excited that you took us with you to Cozy Florida. Oh, thank you. Does anybody else?
I'll share.
Hi, Angelique. Great to see
Hi,
you.
Martha. Good to see you. So what's the first one? The powerful moment I enjoyed, mine was just a few days ago, actually. And so there was a little sadness with it, like, ooh, what if I had written this like right after that and like really captured that moment? I was definitely savoring it while I was in it. So for that, I'm grateful. But I definitely was like, oh, I don't remember all of the pieces. Like this would have been a really nice practice to just do right after a beautiful moment like that. And then for the standing in the sun, I feel like I've been in about a 2-year dark spell in my life and some health issues and stuff like that. But I feel like, I think you had talked about strength, and while at some points it feels like weakness, like literally physical weakness, there's been so many ugly / beautiful opportunities for growth.
As they are.
And I've accessed power and strength that I didn't know I had. You know, sometimes when we're at our weakest, sometimes people come to help and support us, and other times people act up. And so I've had to really stand my ground and be firm during all of this. So anyway, I think sometimes our true power can come out during that when we're in these dark places and unhappy. And then the last one, what I really liked about it, I was like, well, this is silly. I'm writing something I've written before, I've talked about before. But at the end, like these words like hit me. It's like this dream that I have for my work in this world. And I know like what I like about it, but it was like why I want to bring it to other people. And so like joy and knowing and connection and healing all came up, and it was more like I was able to feel what the other people might feel like if I'm able to present it. So that was really cool.
That's
Yeah.
really valuable.
Yeah.
Wow. Well, thank you so much for being here. And I just want to underline, like, when you start writing about something you've written about before, that in of itself is really great information. And it says, and it's the universe saying, keep going, let's do this, you're not done. Let's turn the story and tell it from a different perspective. So trust that. Sometimes, like, maybe you're not being a broken record. Maybe it's that either there's something to heal, or that there's something like, no, this needs to be said in a slightly different way so someone else can hear me. If we give ourselves that permission, rather than having to be productive and like cover new ground, we know that some of the best things in life are the ones we do over and over again, right?
Yeah, it definitely kicked up my resistance. So it was interesting to see that something good could come from it. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. What does Anita say? My Scandinavian friend says we're too obsessed with avoiding darkness and celebrating Hygge. How do you say that word? Hygge? The Hygge word. That word is important. Yeah. Does anybody else want to share anything about their process or what came through? Thanks so much, Angelique.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hi, Wendy.
Oh, hi. I remember meeting you at Tracking Wonder, so it's nice to see you again.
Great to see you.
These are great prompts. I haven't been able to do this before, but the first one was, it was just the other day, like your other friend was saying, but and it wasn't a particularly happy moment, but what made it memorable was I was feeling kind of cold and blah inside, and I thought, ooh, sometimes inside matches outside. So I went outside on my front porch just to say, what is out there? And it was really cold and the wind was blowing, and you kind of could see the forces of the wind, like in the chimes and in the trees across the street, that something you couldn't see was moving through. And it's like not only that the wind was coming, but that I also have an impact on the things that maybe I can't see. And it was really cool, like to have an image of what was going on inside with what was happening outside. So that made it a very special moment for me. And with the second prompt, it was interesting because I found myself thinking of the dimness, like it's not quite dark, it's not quite light. And I thought, well, it's more like Alaska. They get there 2 hours of very dim light. Right. And I was thinking too of after Charlottesville, and I had a work situation with a young mom that was just awful. And it was almost like those two events just brought the darkness into very sharp focus. Like all of a sudden it wasn't dim and fuzzy. It was like, bam, death and horrible things. And it just brought it into very stark contrast between dark and light. And it wasn't fuzzy anymore. And then it became, well, now what, and it was a neat process of kind of moving through foggy to very sharp relief to kind of, okay, now you've seen the worst of it, now what, and a sense of things kind of moving. And then the last one was also fun. I had a hard time going to the beautiful. I mean, it seemed superficial at first, like green space in my neighborhood and just kind of easy, pretty things. But what I noticed with Bearable and Bold is they both had to do with community and networks of support and people believing in you, supporting you, being an advocate. And I felt like both what makes things bearable and what makes me bold are, you know, the give and take and support of other people. And I just hadn't put that together before. So I appreciate so much, you know, this time of being able to reflect on those things in my life that, you know, just generally float in the ether somewhere. So thank you very much.
Oh, Wendy, thank you so much. Thank you for being here and just for bringing, like, you just brought so many important points all together here in that, this idea of just, plus that wind, the last few days, I have been in that element of air right there with you. But, you know, wow, you think about the idea of we search for clarity so much, like we want things to be clear. And then we realize, oh, but I didn't want that to be clear. Oh, or maybe I did and I needed to and I didn't know it. I just so appreciate that sense of like, we're constant, like there's some things we prefer to have be fuzzy. And when you live in that moment of like, oh, the darkness is clear right now. Wow, that's a moment that's when we transform, right? We mature in that, or we meet that new challenge. And I just so appreciate your words about community and about, you know, that's been that's the medicine for so many of us in so many ways. And we forget about that. And, you know, the stuff just keeps kind of floating in the ethers, whether it's just, it's inside us and we don't have a chance to put it on the page, or if it's inside us, we don't have a chance to share it with somebody else to make it real. Yeah. I just want to, oh, this is unrelated, another comment, but I just thank you, Wendy, so much for being here and sharing that. And I just, for everybody who's been here to just add to this kind of cauldron in this community, and knowing that, you know, whether you felt called to speak today or not, you're here, and what you made and created in this time influences and affects all of us. And, you know, yes, that is a woo way of looking at it. That is one of the ways I look at things. You get to know me, that's part of the mix. But we all need that and get that and benefit mutually from one another's attention and work. And whether or not whether we hear it or read it out loud, it isn't necessarily even about that, but it's knowing, like, you know, there were 20 of us sitting down to write together today. That makes a shift. Like, there's something powerful in that to me, it's my definition of what makes our world more beautiful and bearable and bold. And yeah, beautiful is, you know, is it superficial? I know we can all kind of decry it that way and just like, oh yeah, it's pretty. I want more beauty. Like, we all want more beauty. We all deserve more beauty collectively, like from the green space to that, like, amazing pieces of poetry that Kat was reading to us that came through her, to just looking at your faces and knowing you're all here. Like, that's what, you know, that's what it's about. You know, I think we all have gone through so much struggle of, it should be that way and it should be this way. And instead it's like, well, there's a lot right now that's really gorgeous if we just can step in and show up for each other. So I'm just so grateful to each and every one of you for being here. You know, I would love, you know, this is the part where I always want to say, oh, I could tell you about the other stuff that I do, but I just want to keep that on the lowdown because you guys can find it if you want to. I'm not going to do that today because I'm learning about using my playground voice that says, hey, you guys, let's do this again. Let's do it more often. Let me not make it harder for you to tell you, hey, I do some other magical things. And if you want to, you could go find them. I'm going to tell you what they are because I think I owe that to you to make it easier. So here it is. Every week on Wednesdays at noon, we write together in the Sovereignty Circle. We have, how many people do we have who are Sovereignty Circle members? 4. I thank you, my beautiful women who are here today. And what we call this place it's an online community for women who are ready to live and tell a more powerful story. When I first conceived of this, it was called the Sovereign Writers Circle, but it has evolved over the last, and we've been running, we're entering our 15th month together. We started at the beginning of 2018. And originally, it was really for writers, and I saw it as a place where we use writing. But I'm understanding more and more, writing is our vehicle and sovereignty is our destination. And as I opened today, that's a pretty broad concept, but I think it's the concept of our lives and what we're here to live. So in the Sovereignty Circle, we write together, and that's how we discover a lot, because as a story healer and writing coach, it's my primary modality and it's what I know how to use and show you all. But we bring in the other pieces of ourselves to know we need to be fully in our bodies and fully embodying our spirits in order to do this mental work of telling a story. So that's where I get to bring in some amazing guest experts. Actually, Molly Morrissey is going to be a guest expert coming up in May. She's going to talk about some amazing astrology work and discernment work. So hi, Molly, shout out. And we bring in people who are talking about everything from nutrition and how to publish a book to talking about this month we have Lisa Peterson, who's an abundance coach, who's going to talk about, sovereignty is also the sovereigns in our pocket and the ways in which we earn a livelihood, right? It's really looking at holding us from all these various places. And this group it's a book group for women and those who identify as women. And many of us are healers, are coaches, are therapists, are people who are in the transformation professions. And there's also some of us who love to write and know that writing in and of itself is transformational. And, those who don't have a shingle up as healers, I know them to be some of the greatest healers in our group. And we also do a group coaching story healing call. We meet together once a month and just talk and go through what your creative resistances are, what your blocks are. So we have 6 meetings a month. And I'm welcoming new members at the start of each month. I ask you to join for 3 or 6 months. And it's just to be honest, it's the most professionally rewarding and amazing thing I've ever done in my entire life. And I am so damn grateful that I have landed in a place where I've gotten to kind of get the permission from myself and the universe to hold this container, to let these things happen. And if you guys have any questions about it, if you want to ask right now, we have a couple of minutes. If you want to just shoot me a message later, when you go to, I'll post the link in the email that I send with the recording. It's right on my website too. You're asked to apply, and that's just to make sure that you're the right fit and we're the right fit for you, because this is it's a powerful energetic space that I'm creating. And it's not necessarily a place in which I don't know. There are people we're actively working on our blogs and our websites. That's like, we do the practical as well as the magical. So at this point, we've got a smaller cohort is doing a set of website rebirthing workshops that we're running and talking about pages and talking about home pages and the nuts and bolts, because I also have a copywriter's hat that I occasionally put on. So we do some of that practical work, and we also make room for this kind of magical work that we did together today, because we have that opportunity to be all the things together, to hold ourselves in multiple ways. So do you guys have any questions about that right now? I'm happy to answer anything if you have any. I would love to talk to you more about it. If you want to just set up a call, we can certainly do that. And if anybody who's in the Sovereignty Circle wants to mention that it's kind of a nice place to hang out, I wouldn't mind you saying something, but no pressure, my darlings. But yeah, so our time together is pretty much wrapping up. Does anybody have any last thoughts or things that they want to put into the world and ask about?
This is Anita. I just want to say thank you for being so generous with your time. I've really enjoyed doing some of these with you, and right now I'm like in a kind of closing point of my life. Like I have an older child, trying to push him out of the nest pretty soon. So, and I think I've texted you about that. But I just want to say thank you. Thank you very much.
You're so welcome. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Thank you for saying thank you. So my favorite high school English teacher used to always say, thank you for saying thank you. I just really appreciate you too, and I'm glad you all are here. So excellent. Well, my darling dears, it was great to write with you all today. Make that date with yourself and come back to this. Come back to what you started today. Come back to something on the page, because I promise this is the beginning of something for you. It really can be. And until you put your butt in the seat and do the thing, the magic isn't allowed to happen. So go forth, make magic, stand sovereign. Let me know how else I can help and support you. I do one-on-one sessions as well if it's not the time for you to join a group. I will be here for you in whatever way you need it. So mwah, love to all. I will see you guys soon, I hope. And if not in the group, we'll do another one of these sessions again because they're just too good not to enjoy together. So farewell, everybody. Thank you all so much.
Bye now.